All right, welcome back to the channel, guys, for another Real Talk episode. Today, we're going to talk about why the LPVO is king for the prepared citizen in the context of the Second Amendment. And we're going to break down my thought process and walking through this. Of course, this is just my opinion, so take this all with a grain of salt. But I do shoot a lot. I shoot out a lot to long range. I shoot with a lot of guys who are like-minded individuals, and we discuss these things. And really, we keep coming back to the LPVO as being the best option for 2025 for a prepared citizen, again, in the context of the Second Amendment. So let's take a step back and just discuss that point right there. So first of all, I am a civilian. I don't have any military or law enforcement experience. So again, take this all with a grain of salt. But I do have my own life experiences. I shoot a lot. I shoot out the distance a lot, which a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do. And when you don't understand what it's like to shoot to 300 or 400 or 500 yards, especially on a shorter platform like a 12.5, 11.5, so on and so forth, even 14.5s, really, you don't really understand the struggles that come with using anything else essentially besides an LPVO. The main ones being an ACOG or a red dot and a magnifier combination, or just a straight up red dot by itself, which is even more difficult. So taking a step back again, kind of putting this into perspective for you guys, what is the Second Amendment about? And it's not about home invasions. It's not about hunting. It's not about sport. Obviously, it can be used for all of those things and should be used for all those things. But if you read it, and if you read it in the context of what the Founding Fathers intended for the Second Amendment was mutually assured destruction with our own government and defending the citizenry being able to defend itself from foreign tyranny, foreign or domestic tyranny. So the mutually assured destruction part is important because we don't ever want to get to that point. But again, the whole idea behind the Second Amendment is fighting a foreign or domestic government that has become tyrannical. And why is that important in the discussion of the LPVO? Because this unlocks an entirely new set of capabilities for the prepared citizen over something like a red dot and magnifier, and even the ACOG, I would argue as well. So again, in the context of the Second Amendment, I don't think anyone is under the impression that you and your buddies can stand toe-to-toe with the United States military or any really organized military for that matter, whether it be even like Canada or more realistic threats like China or Russia. Insert your foreign military here, right? If you're not fighting a group of gangsters who have no training, I don't think it's really fair to say, because we don't have the things like armored vehicles. We don't have QRF squads that are going to come in and save us if we're in a pinch or we got struck by an ambush. We don't have air support. We don't have all of these pieces of infrastructure that the military has. So if you were to actually stand a chance against any army, whether it be ours, which is the best in the world, shout out America, or any other army for that matter, you need to utilize guerrilla tactics. We're talking about hit and run guerrilla tactics. That's really the only way that you can effectively stop a force like that without a massive group of dudes, without all the infrastructure that comes with starting your own army, right? So for me, it's me and like 4 guys that I could probably call up right now that are pretty squared away, that shoot a lot, we train together. And for us, I mean, the number one priority is survive and protect the things we love, and then execute whatever said mission is, if that were to ever become the case. And in that, we're never going to try to just square up in a field like the Redcoats did and battle whatever army it is. We'll just get eviscerated. So in that context, when you think about it that way, why is the LPVO so much better than something like the red dot, the aim point in the magnifier and or ACOG? It's because it unlocks the ability for you to observe targets. Number one, the biggest thing is observation, and from a distance, because distance is your friend and concealment is your friend, especially when you're, again, utilizing these types of tactics. And I know as a civilian, I shouldn't be discussing tactics, but this is the side I come from. This is all open source information, by the way. If you just study up on some history of conflicts of this nature, you can find very quickly a lot of the guerrilla tactics that are used are hit and run tactics. They're not trying to stand up, square up to a full-on military force. So number one, it's for observation, collecting information, figuring out what you're up against if you're out away from your base or whatever, your main point of security, I guess you can say. Observation, and then the second thing is obviously getting accurate impacts out to distance. Again, being that it's going to be these types of tactics, if you have a red dot and a magnifier, if you have an ACOG even with a BDC, it's not going to allow you to get as consistent hits on target than something like a 1 to 6, a 1 to 8, or a 1 to 10 even. And that's kind of where my mindset is. Again, me just talking through my inner dialogue, talking about this with my friends who shoot a lot of military and law enforcement guys as well in the industry who are obviously also civilians, also think about their time after their retirement, or guys who were previously in the military. And it all just comes down to the fact that if you don't have the glass, you can't shoot what you can't see. You can shoot a random moving object that you think is something. You can obviously wing. You can throw down effective covering fire to be able to give you guys enough cover time to move and reposition, whether it be moving forward, moving back, leapfrogging, whatever it is. You can obviously send some rounds, some covering fire, something that makes somebody duck. But in the case that we're talking about the Second Amendment, it's so important to understand your limitations and what your strengths are. Your strengths are maneuverability. Your strengths are the element of surprise in that situation. And you don't want to be right up on a giant group of dudes who have armored vehicles, who have air support, who have probably much higher tech than you have. And this kind of allows you to keep that distance of separation. Now, it's not just obviously on the AR-15. I think the next real talk may be discussing DMRs and sniper roles as a civilian, because I think that's even more important, to kind of have a DMR or a sniper who the whole squad of 4 or 5 or 6 guys is kind of protecting and escorting to and from whatever said high value target they're going to remove. I think that's a whole different topic, but even for the guys who are running shorter guns, 14.5, 12.5, whatever it is, 13.7, 11.5, again, these guns are capable, and with new modern ammunition coming out that's going to become more and more available and cheaper for civilians to then purchase, these guns are becoming more and more capable every single day. Even a 5.56 gas gun like this 12.5 Geisley has made a ton of impacts out to 500 yards. We shot this thing really a ton out to 450 because that's the longest range we could shoot out at my buddy's ranch. But I take this thing to RPR and shoot 500, 600 yards with it consistently. Obviously, it's losing a lot of its effect. We're not talking calibers here. We're not talking barrel lengths. We're talking LPVOs. Now, again, I don't really fault people for saying, what's your 80%, right? Like without removing the topic of the Second Amendment from the conversation, are you likely to ever have to fight a foreign military or domestic military on American soil? Most likely not, and I pray to God we never have to. But and in that case, what's your 80%? What's your 90%? What's the most likely scenario for you to happen or to need your firearm in? It's most likely your handgun while you're out and about in the world, gas stations, downtown area, wherever you might be. You might get in a situation where you need your defensive handgun, or it might be home defense. Someone breaks in your home, someone tries to steal your things, someone tries to kill you in your home, then you're going to use it within 25 yards maximum, probably more likely around 10 yards, 7 to 15 yards, depending on your home layout and your line of sights within your home. So that is not an argument I'm trying to crush or say it's not important whatsoever, but this is America, and these things have become better and better. There's a ton of really good, more affordable options today than there ever were in all of history. So I'm not saying you need to have just one gun and set it up like this because it's your duty as an American to be able to defend freedom from tyranny, foreign or domestic. I do believe that, but if you're like, hey, I want to have one gun to work my 80-90%, yeah, like then go with a red dot and a magnifier. But I think that if you can afford it, you should probably just get 2 uppers. Maybe if you want to do it this way, this would be the redundancy or the standardization way that if I could redo it all, I'd probably go this route. Just get 2 12.5 uppers, put one with an EOTech on it for home defense, and put one with a LPVO on it for the other type of tactics that we're talking about with the Second Amendment. So that's kind of the way I would redo it if I could. But again, this is all to say, when I'm talking about these things in my videos, I think a lot of people just get lost in the sauce saying you're never going to need to take a shot, or you better have a good lawyer if you're shooting somebody at 450, 300, or whatever distance, right? That's not a self-defense distance. That's not what we're talking about. Like, the point of the Second Amendment is for that exact reason. So fighting tyranny, we're in a wartime or in a civil war, whatever, without rule of law situation, and distance is your friend because you are a small unit, or you may even be by yourself, in which case distance is even more important for you to be able to evade after having to take a shot or break contact. So having the ability to not only observe, identify, and then get consistent, accurate hits on target is super important. Okay, I think I kind of got my point across there. I probably forgot a bunch of things, so let me know down in the comments what I'm missing from that conversation, and I would love to reply to you guys in the comments. But let's just mention a few LPVOs that I personally have experience with. Again, this is not a deep dive. I'm not going to show you guys any POV footage. These are unedited talks, pretty much my inner monologue. But I want to talk to you guys about a few options because I'm here talking, praising LPVOs. I want to give you guys a few options that I have experience with, that there's things that I like about them, there's things that I don't, and we'll just go through a couple real quick. So obviously we're looking right here at the Night Force Attacker 1-8. This is kind of, by all accounts, the creme de la creme. I would say this and the Vortex Razor 1-10 are pretty much highly regarded as the best two LPVOs that money can buy because they are extremely expensive. This is a $2,900 optic. So am I saying you need to go out and spend $3,000 on an optic? Not at all. There's a ton of other options that are kind of in between those two, these two rather, the Night Force and the Razor HD 1-10. And like the cheapest I would go, which I'll just shout it out right now, is the Arkin 1-8. I don't love the reticle. Reticle is super important for me, especially in an LPVO, or like if I was to buy an MPVO, which I'm considering right now, 2-10. Reticle is super important, but the reason being for me, again, to get those effective hits and why I dislike the ACOG so much is because even at the 300-yard marker with a 4X ACOG, which has crystal clear glass, great field of view, it's very, and a great light transmission. If a target is recessed slightly into the wood line and you're shooting a 6-inch plate that's been peppered up, even if it's painted highlight or orange, which it was, it's very hard to see with just a 4X ACOG, and I have really good vision. So the other thing is wind hold. So when you go past 300 yards, you kind of have to go from that chevron, or the bottom of the chevron at 300, down to your BDC. And at that point, if there's any amount of wind coming out of a shorter barrel gun, I'd even argue out of a 14.5 or 16-inch gun, you're going to have to hold off of the reticle into open space, using the reticle to reference a tree branch or the side of a rock on the berm or something in order to get the effective hits on target, because your bullet's going to be getting pushed by the wind far enough away from the T's on the reticle that you're going to be holding into open space. So I say all that to say, even though I don't love the reticle on the 1-8 Arkin, the kill box reticle they call it, it still has reference points. It has wind holds for you to use, so it's still better than even my much more expensive Trijicon Credo 1-8, which I also love. Don't get me wrong. I'll pull up the Credo real quick for you guys to see so you can look at it as we're talking crap about it. So the 1-8 Credo has lived on many rifles. This was kind of the first nice, I would say, quality or brand name LPVO that I ever bought. And at the time, I think I bought it for like $1,300. It's still around that price point today. So it's not crazy expensive. And the new Trijicon Credo line, that's the 1-10, I believe, does have wind holds in the reticle. So, or at least it has an option for wind holds. So I would say if you're looking at buying a LPVO, the major thing to look for is the reticle, and tube size does matter. Again, this is not like a scientific measurement of tube size and how much more light transmission a 34 millimeter versus a 30 millimeter gets. But I do tend to lean towards 34 millimeter because they just do collect more light, and it makes it easier at those dusk and dawn times to observe and collect more information, more light through your scope to be able to see things better, whether it's a target or whatever you're looking at. So the Credo 1-8 that I have here is great, but where it falls short is does not have wind holds. The reticle, it only, as far as I know, has one reticle options, either an MRAD or MOA, but it's at least not a BDC reticle. That's what I would say. Just stay away from BDC reticles because it's supposed to work with whatever ammo and barrel length, but they never match up. And you're going to be switching ammo types, especially in one of these scenarios we're talking about. Don't tie yourself to a BDC. Just get a mil reticle so that you can understand your dope, whatever it is, and that, you know, just throw a little dope chart in your scope cap or on your stock or something, and that's just better, believe me. BDC sounds too good to be true because it is. It never works like it should, but I do prefer a mil reticle. But wind holds for me are very important because they're so small, they don't really obscure your vision, especially on a first focal plane at 1x. You're not gonna be able to see them at all on a good reticle. And when you need them, they are essential in getting accurate hits, consistent hits, one after another at those extended ranges. Anything really past 200 yards, if there's any amount of wind, like we have a lot of wind in the central Texas area, you're going to be holding off the plate. So if you're holding off the plate and you have a wind hold, even if it's not super dense wind holds like a crazy horse trimmer 3 reticle, you can put that wind hold at the top of the plate, at the corner of the plate, wherever you need it to be. in order to get that impact. And also for combat effective hits, everyone wants to talk about the ACOG's a combat optic. Again, I don't hate the ACOG. For a established military, it's great. When you have a ton of guys shooting, at the same target, it's great to have a little quick, super durable, large field of view optic. But for the civilian side, again, it just, see, I lost my train of thought. Went off on a tangent and now I'm losing my train of thought. But essentially, getting back to the credo, a wind hold is super nice to have. Again, ACOG just doesn't do it for me. I can't get consistent hits out, even though I'm proned out, like the most stable position I could ever be in, possibly proned out with a rear bag. And I know I can shoot these distances. I've done it with the same gun with an LPVO on it. It's just not happening with the ACOG, and that's why, again, this is a good option. It has locking turrets. I would recommend either locking or cap turrets for your LPVO, so you don't have to worry about them bumping and knocking out of place as you're running and gunning with it. And then the next LPVO I want to talk about, because this is really one of my favorites, even though I think it has one Achilles heel, which EOTech may have fixed. Sorry, I don't know if you guys could hear me back there with my audio. Got a mic up top now instead of the lapel mic, because the lapel mic's really annoying. It was like popping and stuff. Couldn't figure out why, so we got a mic up here now. But I was saying the EOTech Voodoo 1-10 is kind of my favorite for the money LPVO, because I think it really punches really high above its price point. I think I got this one on Euro Optic for like $13.50. So, and again, we have a code with Euro Optic. Oh, great time to plug the channel real quick. If you guys do want to support the channel, rangedaybro.com. You can head over there, check out our discounts page. RDB10 saves you 10% off over at Brownells, $150 or more. And there's a ton of other affiliate codes and links. So if you guys are going to buy anything, you can shop with my links and support the channel at the same time. So love you guys. Thank you for doing that. But again, EOTech 1-10. I'll just go ahead and throw its Achilles heel out there. I think on these original versions, they were stated as weatherproof. They didn't actually state that they were waterproof, which I think is a huge red flag, especially coming in at above $1,000 to be able to be like, hey, oh yeah, it's not waterproof, by the way. Not saying EOTech won't take care of it. Obviously, while society's still standing, the company can fix this if you have an issue with it. I think the newer ones came out and mentioned that they are now waterproof since SHOT Show in 25. So again, that's just one thing that made me pause from buying and investing in more of these, because they are a great price point. I do love the reticle in this thing. I forget which one it is. It's got the circle and dot in the center. It's not the circle and crosshair. That one's pretty terrible. But the circle and dot in the center with the wind holds, it's really great. The only downside is not red dot bright. So and neither is the Credo. So I'll just state that. I know right now it's pretty much the Vortex 1-10, the Attacker 1-8, and now the new red dot bright Primary Arms PLX-C RDB, which they didn't license from me, but you can also shop with Primary Arms from the discounts page on the website. But this guy has lived on a bunch of different rifles, including and not limited to my HK MR556, which is a 16.5-inch 5.56 gun, and I've shot with this optic on that gun out to 800 yards, consistently hitting at it was a 2x2 foot. Or no, I'm sorry, it was an 18 by 2 foot steel plate. So it was a larger target than I usually shoot. Lately, I've been shooting at 6-inch plates and or reduced C-zone targets, which are 8 inches across by 14 inches tall, which are pretty small targets to be hitting with, especially 12.5-inch 5.56 guns out to 450 yards. But I digress. We shot this thing out to extended ranges. And again, this optic allowed me to do that. If I've previously had the 3.5 power ACOG on that gun, there was no chance I was hitting that consistently at that distance. And it's not because I'm a bad shooter. So before anyone starts commenting because you suck at shooting, believe me, I do suck at shooting, but long range shooting, stabilized shooting, precision shooting is kind of my jam. I love it. Not saying I'm the best in the world, but when I take an optic off a gun and put a new optic on it and it unlocks a new capability, it's not because of me being the shooter. It's because the optic allows you to do it. So again, I love this thing. I love the reticle in it. I think it's a great price point. It's got a locking top turret, which is exposed, a capped windage turret, which is fine. Not red dot bright, but a good price point for the money. Now let's go to the last one, which I have the least amount of time on, but I do want to mention it. And that is going to be this guy right here. So I'm very excited about this. A lot of you guys were yelling in the comments, literally screaming at the top of your lungs about this optic. This is the Primary Arms PLX-C 1-8. This has the Griffin Mill reticle, I believe it is. Yep, Griffin Mill reticle. Again, much better than a BDC. This is a 33 millimeter tube, so it's a little bit smaller. So this guy isn't complete yet. I'm still waiting on the top ring and a top dot for this thing, so that's the only reason it hasn't found its way onto one of my more heavily used rifles. This rifle has just been sitting around for a while, so it looks pretty on here. I wanted to put it on here for now. But again, I don't have too much time behind this thing, but from what I can see, besides the anodizing, which is a little bit too gold for my liking, it is a phenomenal piece of machinery. It's Japanese glass. It's a 1:8, again, coming in around $1,500, so in line with the Credo and the EOTech Voodoo, but it's gonna be a lot smaller, a lot lighter. So again, if you're wanting to keep a package relatively small and lightweight on an 11.5 or something like that, this is probably, if this thing continues to look as good and perform as good as I've seen so far with very limited experience, this is probably gonna move over to one of my more prolific or more loved 12.5s in the near future. This is on a 1.5 inch primary arms height mount. So again, testing between a 1.5 and 1.7. I'm not really interested in 1.9 for an LPVO because I'm always running top dots. For me, the top dot's just the way to go, not only for finding a further target in your main optic. So I usually would, if I'm taking a longer shot, dial this up to 8x, find the general area with the top dot and then drop into the glass. But I'm typically running Badger 1.7 inch height mounts on these guys, which allows you to really get a nice fast through the primary optic, you know, off the timer or whatever, which is great because you don't have to really crunch down on the gun to get into the glass. But then your top dot is much higher, which is no problem for passive aiming. But if you wanted to, for whatever reason, use that as your primary 1x as your top dot, it's a little bit like your cheek is just floating out there. You lose a point of contact. So I'm excited to start to experiment more with the 1.5 mount and that top dot there. But getting back to this optic specifically, it has a great reticle. This one specifically is not red dot bright. It's not the RDB variant, but they do have one coming soon. So if that turns out to be as, if all the claims are as true as they make them seem, then that might turn out to be the new optic to contend with, because it's going to be red dot bright, somewhat affordable, and also have the great advantage of the Griffin, or the primary arms reticles rather. So for full disclosure, this was sent to me by Primary Arms, so shout out Primary Arms. If you guys do want to support the channel, we have a link with them. No code, unfortunately, but if you guys buy any of their optics, it does support the channel using those links. But anyways, I brought this up last because I have the least time on it, but I'm very excited about it. We'll see if it really makes a huge difference, if it's a very noticeable difference or not, being a 34 millimeter tube. But again, that disadvantage in the light gathering does pan out to an advantage on the weight saving side. So again, and we'll talk about this whole optic setup once we get more time behind it. I don't want to speak too much about it, but first impressions are, I'm really impressed with the build quality, the clicks. The brightness is just not there. It's much like the Credo and the Voodoo. It's like red dot bright, or sorry, red daylight red rather than daylight bright. But it's really good build quality, and I think this is a great option for guys who want to keep, because one of the biggest complaints about LPVOs is they're not as fast as a EOTech, which is cool, but the other one is like the weight, right? Because they weigh more than an EOTech or an Aimpoint. They weigh a lot more. So this is kind of a compromise, I would say, as far as the weight savings or the weight sacrifice you're making in going with an LPVO. So if this thing performs like I think it will, this may make its way onto my number one kind of do-it-all duty gun that's chambered in 5.56. So again, I know we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. We've gone all over the place, but getting back to the original topic of the video is LPVOs just unlock a capability that people who don't actually go out and find somewhere to shoot past 100 or 200 yards just really don't understand. 400 yards doesn't sound like a long range for a rifle to be able to shoot, but for a 14.5 or anything shorter, 400 yards is a pretty long distance. And for all those guys, again, nothing but mad respect for our military members, but for all those guys who say a Marine can shoot at 400 yards with an ACOG, you just suck at shooting, or a Marine can shoot iron sights at 400 yards. Have you seen those size of those targets? I mean, they're like 4x4. So no, they can't. And it's not because they're bad shots either. It's just because that is the limitation of either iron sights or even with the ACOG, right? So the military is always adapting after the civilian market kind of takes over, and we see a lot of the civilian market going to the LPVO. Again, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to talk you through my mindset. You see a ton of tier 1 guys running LPVOs now, obviously depending on their mission and their task and what they're trying to accomplish, but LPVOs are not going away, and especially for the civilian side, guerrilla warfare, when you're outnumbered, you want to keep distance, you have to be able to engage, understand who you're shooting at. You don't want to shoot at friendlies, and understand if that person needs a hole punch in them or not. So that's pretty much going to be it, guys. I felt the need to explain the reasoning behind this because, again, I can get on here, click record, and start talking about how great LPVOs are, but without putting it in perspective of like where my mindset is at in building this and training with these types of optics, then it really would fall short and misrepresent what I'm trying to convey, which is not, hey, this is the best for home defense, or hey, this is the best for whatever your situation is. But for my situation, as my duty as an American to defend freedom, foreign and domestic, I don't know how many times I've said that today, but if shit ever popped off, I'm gonna want as much space between me and said bad guy as possible. I'm not gonna wanna let them get close to me or my guys or my family or my position at all. I wanna shoot them from a very long way away, and then if we gotta get, we can get, and we have a little bit of a head start. So that's kind of the idea. That's gonna be it for today, guys. If you wanna support the channel, rangedaybro.com, you can check it out, discounts page, RDB10 over at Brownells, and a bunch of other places. There's a bunch of codes over there on the discounts page, as well as our loadouts page. A lot of the guns we feature are on the loadouts page with all the parts there with affiliate links, so it does support the channel when you click on those and shop with those. Also subscribe to our email list over there. Like, comment, subscribe. I love you guys. Thank you. Take care.